when you're a young kid and you're supposed to be in bed and you turn on satellite TV and you see World Rallycross Championships in Sweden or some foreign country at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it's Ken and his co-writer Alex ripping through the woods.
We were talking earlier before we go on live with him. Riley Herbst driving the Xfinity Series, supporting those Monster Energy colors. That we ought to just hold a permanent seat for this dude. It's like every other weekend. Here comes Riley. Here comes Riley. You feel pretty comfortable coming to Freak Nation, Riley?
I like it. It's always a good time on here, and it means something good if I'm usually talking to you guys. So it's a good thing.
Well, with it being Throwback Weekend in Darlington, and we saw the rendering of, well, not the rendering, the actual car that you're going to be supporting with a dear friend of ours, Ken Block. We thought, yeah, it's time to get Riley back here in the Freak Nation. Can you run us through this? And I know the brotherhood with Monster and so forth, but how did this come about where the throwback that you have this weekend at Darlington is the rendering of Ken Block's older car? How'd that all come about?
Well, first and foremost, I'm just kind of proud of myself that I held the secret for as long as I did for a couple of weeks. I'm not that great of a secret holder, but I was able to keep it out of even my friend's mouths and everything like that. So it was cool when it came to that for sure. But Ken Block was just a huge inspiration of mine growing up as a kid. So to be able to run his livery, which was my favorite growing up, just means the world to me. And obviously very thankful to the Block family and of course Monster Energy for allowing me to run this scheme. Because obviously, as you guys know, Monster is very consistent with their black and green scheme. So to throw a little Gymkhana drip on it is pretty special.
Riley Herbst joining us here in the Freak Nation. And Riley, you look at really what Ken Block has meant to not just Gymkhana, Rally. It's really what his brand, his name, his number, his scheme transcends motorsports. Will be at a Supercross event or an off-road event or an NFL game. And there are people supporting the colors of Ken Block. Did you have a friendship with Ken Block back in the day?
I didn't. I was a little bit younger, but I did meet him in passing quite a few times. So just meeting your idol, you guys can probably think back to some of your childhood moments. And if you were lucky enough to meet some of your idols, it was kind of a starstruck deal. And I remember 13-year-old Riley getting to meet him at X Games was pretty taken back by that for sure. So coming full circle now to be in the Monster Energy family and then run his scheme at Darlington is very, very special. I don't take it lightly.
You talk about how Ken Block was a big inspiration to you, whether it was on the internet or watching on TV, like you just brought up the X Games. How specifically? Was it his driving style? Was it his method of madness to his branding and his business? Was it him and just being a fun, cool guy? What exactly was it that was so inspiring about Ken Block to you?
Well, that's a great question, but I've always been a fan of motorsports and anything with the car and motor. Like I've always watched, tuned in, just try to follow as much as I can. But there was something different about Ken Block because when you'd go to middle school lunches and people who aren't race fans or motorsports fans would be talking about these Gymkhana videos. And I think that he definitely gets underestimated on how much he drove motorsports to the public eye and made racing and cars and drifting and burnouts super cool to young kids. And they wanted to be that. And so I think that was a huge impact. And not many people can say that they've impacted racing or motorsports like Ken has.
You nailed it. Yes, he modernized motorsports a decade or decade and a half before motorsports became modernized with viral videos. And yeah, you just nailed it right there. And I wish you're right. I think it was our first show of this year, actually, where Statman, I believe it was you that said, I wish more people understood that. Maybe they will now, posthumously, I can never say that word right. But regardless, Ken Block was a legend from day one, and he didn't even know it himself.
Yeah, it's cool to see for sure. But just getting home after school when I'm supposed to be doing my schoolwork and just sitting on YouTube and watching all the Gymkhana videos that I've seen thousands of times, but just watching them again. And when you're a young kid and you're supposed to be in bed and you turn on satellite TV and you see World Rallycross Championships in Sweden or some foreign country at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it's Ken and his co-writer Alex ripping through the woods. I thought that was so cool as a young kid, and that's just kind of what drew me to him.
So Riley Herbst, the Xfinity driver, Monster Energy. Ken Block's name was around rallying, rallycross, the Gymkhana videos. He did almost everything that you aren't doing. As a hero of yours, how did you avoid rallying and rallycross if you looked up to Ken the way you're describing now?
That's interesting because I did want to be kind of a little bit of a rally racer. I just loved the way that they had car control and were going almost 200 miles an hour through the woods. But I started racing asphalt racing out on the West Coast, and I just truly found a love and passion of it. And I still was a fan of other types of motorsports like rallying, but my career path kind of took me down the NASCAR and pavement route, and we followed that heavily. But I was in the shop today and I was joking with some of the crew guys. I was like, two worlds are going to collide this weekend: the Gymkhana fans and the NASCAR Classic Throwbacks. Never really thought I'd see a Gymkhana car on the high banks of Darlington, but we'll see it this weekend.
That's an interesting thing. Will these collapse? Is there a Gymkhana world in the NASCAR world?
I think so. I mean, I think that paint scheme, Ken Block, I mean, his name is just, everybody knows that name. Everybody knows what he's about. And I feel like hopefully it brings some of the rally fans, some of the Gymkhana fans over to NASCAR, and hopefully tune in for a really good race this weekend at Darlington. It's going to be hot and slick, and we're going to be sliding around and doing a little drifting of our own as well.
You know what? We just, in looking at that scheme again, of course, the drip, and you referenced the drip, you're going to have merchandise on site all weekend and past Darlington, I would imagine. Talk about the drip merchandise, where people can get it if they're not at the track, and where the proceeds are going.
Yeah, so this actually is very limited. It will be cut off after Darlington, so you can pre-order it now on the website or get it at the racetrack. But after the Darlington race is over, the merch is gone. But super grateful to Monster Energy and the Block family for allowing us to do this. And so every penny of the proceeds go to the 43 Institute, which is Ken and his family's foundation to aspire young dreamers to chase their dream, and whether that be in motorsports industry or management industry, but to help young kids chase their dream, because that's kind of what Ken pushed. And so every penny of the hat and t-shirt sold over the next week will be donated to the 43 Institute.
His name is Riley Herbst, flying those Ken Block colors this weekend at Darlington. Again, pinpoint something for me. Were you just hanging out in your car, pumping some iron, when somebody called you and said, dude, would you like to run the Ken Block scheme? Or no, Riley, you're going to run the Ken Block scheme, and this is what we're going to do. Who told you first? Where were you?
Man, I wish it was a story like that, but these things kind of happen months and months in advance. And I kind of came up with the idea, obviously with a great partner of Monster Energy of ours. And we kind of floated through some ideas around, and they kind of like to keep it the classic mean green look with the flat black car. And then I mentioned the idea of a Ken Block tribute, just to honor him and what he's done for the organization and the company of Monster Energy, and kind of went up the flagpole a little bit, and they got behind it. They supported it. The final checkoff was the family, obviously, and they supported it as well. So it kind of came together in a long period of time, but it happened so fast. So I can't say how grateful I am for the two parties to approve it, but now we get to go race it. So I'm excited.
Riley Herbst here in the Freak Nation on the Mother's Day. And we talked about this at Talladega, the importance of your mom and your career. Riley, can you share with the Freak Nation, again on Mother's Day, what your mom has meant to you, your career, your family?
Everything. She's the glue that holds our family together. I think everybody in our family knows that. My dad, my sister, and me included. So my mom used to drive me to the racetrack when I was under 16 and my dad was working. So we'd have some long hours in the car, to and from practice, back and forth. And she was a trooper for sure.
So let me ask you a little more on this mom thing. Your family business is off-road racing. So what part did mom play in when you told her, I want to do this? Did she look at you and smack you around a little bit and go to your room? I don't want to talk to you right now. Or did she buy into it?
No, she was definitely bought in. I feel like my dad and my uncles had to be bought in a little bit more than she did. they kind of looked at me like I had a third eye or something, just because of what my family has accomplished and my dad and uncles and cousins now accomplish in the off-road desert. And I kind of wanted to steer the other way and go pavement racing, but everybody's super supportive now. And I think my mom was one of the first to support me on it for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah. Mama's boy on a Mother's Day, Riley Herbst. Dude, thanks for doing this. You're going to have some unique eyeballs on you this entire weekend, buddy.
I'm excited about it, and just so grateful again to run it. Thank you guys for having me.
The biggest racing series in America is coming to your town. The Enjoy Illinois 300, presented by Ticket Smarter. Get your tickets now at WWTRaceway.com. Brought to you in part by the Office of Illinois Tourism and Illinois South Tourism.